Hi everyone. Today I have my furnace out of my RV. You can see it down there. And I have it out of there for a reason I'll tell you about in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you what it looked like once it's out. Okay, so that thing is pretty compact. And it just slides into this hole from the outside. This platform is in here, and I'm not going to fasten it just yet, but I wanted to show you what it looks like. And it just slides in on that. There's a set of screws that fastens around this entire thing, bunches of them, and it looked like they had used butyl tape on this. I may or may not do that. I'm a believer in silicone, especially because I have that with me all the time. The 100% silicone or butyl tape. Even if I use the butyl tape, I would probably silicone the top or something. I trust 100% silicone a lot. So anyway, I had this off of here because we actually had some mice get in. They only got into this region, which goes back underneath the fridge. Well, that's the fridge, but back underneath the shower. And they probably got in that hole right there that I'm getting ready to fill up, and that's why I wanted to shoot this before I did that. But I'm just going to use foam for that. They didn't do it. The manufacturers did not do it. I'm just going to use this expanding foam. It's great stuff. And that should probably do it. Yes, mice can chew through that, but they're not likely to if they can't see an opening. They don't really have a reason to look any further. But when they see that opening, they start exploring, and I think that's what happened. 3 mice got in here. 2 died, and you can imagine what that was fun that was. One of them, well, 3 of them died because I caught one of them in a trap. Anyhow, I'm hopefully going to be able to put this all together in one video later to show you how to get it in and out if you have to replace it. Another issue that I have is after I worked on it, got it all cleaned out, see the mouse had gotten one of the mice. I couldn't find it for a while. When we lit the furnace, it really smelled pretty funny. It had gotten right back in underneath this. This is the combustion chamber, the heat exchanger area, and it had gotten inside and died right in here. And I couldn't see it for the life of me when it was in the vehicle when we were out camping once, because this is all down inside that cabinet over there. But sure enough, there it was, and there were droppings and everything inside here. So I've cleaned it up real well, but in the process I noticed the fan is now making some kind of a noise, and it wasn't before. It would make it in one direction but not the other. Now it makes it in both. So I'm going to slide it in and see if there's, you know, just do a dry run, slide it in without fastening the screws yet, and see if it makes that noise when it didn't before. Hopefully I can get these to work. Hi all. Today I'm going to show you how to remove a furnace from your RV. This is a Norwood 1630, I believe it is. It's a 30 BTU, 30,000 BTU furnace. It's not huge actually. You know, this is what, maybe a 1.5 by 1.5 feet or something. This is the outside of ours, and it sits right under here. There's an access from the inside. This is actually where it draws its air from. It's like the return air. So the first thing you're going to want to do is shut off your gas. So come over to your gas, shut that off. All the way. Next, turn off power. Here's the main power in our unit. And you can then remove these 4 screws here. And this slides right out. And you can see that this exhaust tube here fits inside that other one that's further in. So when you put it back in, it just slips in like that. All right. Set that aside, and I'll show you something under here in just a moment. Come inside here, take off this grate. Now we had a mouse, actually 3 mice, climbed into here, wild mice from out camping in the woods. And it's the only time we've ever had a problem, but they had gotten up here. You can see where I put some foam in down there. There was a hole where these wires came through. Right below there is the frame, is a nice little platform for them to crawl up on and hop right up in there. I guess one of them found it, probably showed the others. Wound up being a death trap, but I tell you, it was a real hassle for me. It kicked off a whole bunch of problems. They didn't chew any wires or anything, but all right. So I'm going to show you one thing about this that's a little tricky. It's not rocket science or anything, but if you don't know how it works, you may be a little mystified at first. But this ductwork all just easily just twists right off. See what I'm doing there? Twisting it to where those line up. Okay, you see that little tab. And when you go to put them back on there, you're going to slide it up on that tab into that little notch. And then you're going to get the rest of it to seat. You got to wiggle it around a little bit, and then you feel it seat. Then you just turn, keeping it pressed against it, and it just kind of screws itself on there in about a quarter turn or so. And then that's it. That's really just how that works. So you take all this stuff off, let it all dangle out. There's a couple of screws, one here on the back end of this one, and there. Take those out while you're in here. And then your wiring is very simple. There is 3 wires going to this and ours. Positive, negative, and then that blue one is the thermostat. Disconnect those while you're in here. Twist wire nuts back on the camper end of those so that you could turn your power back on later if you wanted. Now if you look at this, when I first looked at it, I thought, how am I going to get this thing out of here? There's a gas line running down in there. It won't slide out. Oh, well, all you have to do is come to this side. You see the gas line right there. So you're going to disconnect the gas line from here. The way I found to do that, this is a 3/4 inch nut. And this is a flare nut. So it needs no Teflon tape or paste or anything. It's a flare nut. Problem is, check it out. See how it moves? It's very, you got to give it some backing. So the best way I saw to do it was to take some channel locks and grab a hold of this part right there really well while you're turning that nut. Okay? Now remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty. That's the way it works here as you're looking down on the top. So in order to loosen this nut, we have to go this direction to loosen it. All right, this direction to tighten it. I'll show you something in a minute with the gas line over there that I had to fix once too. So once you get that done and that pulled back up, you just have to remove all these screws, okay? So you aren't even to the hard part yet. What's the hard part? Well, they used butyl tape or maybe that die-core stuff or something that's sealed this entire thing. In order to get it to come out, you're going to have to very carefully take a sharp a utility knife, and obviously this one isn't too sharp, and you've got to very carefully cut around this whole thing multiple times until your blade is getting in there deep, cutting, and it takes a while and it takes some strength, but just take your time, especially on the outside corners, because you'll wind up scratching out here onto your camper. You can see I put mine back, but I haven't actually finished the caulk job yet. I use silicone for mine, and when I put it back, there's silicone behind all of this, but I still need to do some clear silicone here. So I'll do that later. What I did was, once I got it loosened as much as I thought, I came in here and I was just whacking on the back of this with my hand. Bam, on this side, that side, lifting a little, you know, even with a pry bar if you want to, against this platform, until it finally starts loosening itself up. Once it lets go, it lets go. And then you can slide it out, and before you put it back, you need to clean off the back surface of this flange and the surface of your camper, of course. So the reason I took mine out is because, as I said, the mouse got up in there, and we had one that died inside there. I caught one, and then I was really certain that that was all that was going on. So about 2 weeks later, we go on a camping trip, and we actually needed a little heat. This is Colorado. So I turned on the heater, and there was this pretty awful smell. So I was convinced it was just from their you know, poop and pee. So I did as good a cleaning on site as I could do, and inside this box here, you know, this whole area here. So the air gets drawn in through this as the blower runs. This is the blower, okay? And air is drawn in through these grates, even through, you know, any way you can get into this thing, and pumps through the pumps into that big box. Okay, so this here is the you can see these tubes in here, and that's the heat exchanger. Okay, so the flame burns through that zone there, and a separate fan is turning to blow air through that and exhaust it out. Meanwhile, these heat up in this box, and air is blown into this box, and that heat transfers into the air and then gets moved out through these ducts. So a mouse had gotten in there, the third one that I hadn't found yet, and it had died literally in the center of that curly queue of tubes there. So you couldn't smell it much when it wasn't running, but when that thing started heating up, we were cooking a mouse down there. So it wasn't great. So it's really good to try to keep ahead of that to begin with. I have one other little problem that might help somebody down the road, and I'll mention it in the description, so hopefully that gets caught in somebody's search. But when I got worried that maybe somehow a mouse had gotten, I mean, I knew better really, but I thought maybe a mouse had gotten through this exhaust port and actually had climbed into the combustion chamber or the heat exchanger. So this is the beginning of that tube, or the end of it rather, and that thing curls around. It comes up to this point right up in here. This is the burner assembly, must be behind this, sticking into that tube, is my guess. And I thought, well, maybe a mouse got in there. So once I got this thing out on my garage floor, I thought, well, I'll just stick the shop vac onto this. Stick the shop vac on it, sucking, and it didn't do a thing. Didn't do anything. I didn't hear anything come into it or anything. So then I reversed it and blew the shop vac into this. What happened then was it actually moved this wheel, this squirrel cage here, which is actually the blower for this. All right. So this is the blower that blows the air through your camper. This blower here is the exhaust blower. And that has a thing on it. Well, anyway, I'll get to that in a moment. So it started making a funny noise when I started blowing in rather than sucking out. From that point forward, when I put it in, I had heard that there was this like rat-a-tat-tat noise, you know, like when you put a baseball card in your spokes and you ride around on your bicycle. Come on, you did that. That's the sound it was making. It didn't sound like anything was really loose. But I thought there's obviously something wrong. So I put it in, did a test run. Sure enough, it worked fine, but it made a weird rat-a-tat-tat noise when it started and when it came to a stop especially. So I was pretty frustrated and thought, that's just great. It created another problem. All right, how am I going to take out this motor? So I pulled out the manual looking to be able to figure out maybe how to take this motor out, and it slides out, I believe, if you undo some screws. You know, I believe this whole motor assembly will slide out, but you'd have to disconnect some wires and stuff. So at one point my eyes fell upon what's called the sail switch. The sail switch is a little sail looking piece of metal that indicates and proves to the unit that the exhaust is in fact running. If that sail switch doesn't say the exhaust is running, then it won't light the burner. And that goes for your water heater too. If you've got an instant water heater, they have one of those on there. So I thought, that's pretty funny. I'll bet that's what's making that noise. So I hadn't seen the sail switch because I was constantly looking at it from this angle, and then I realized this is the sail switch right here. There's two little screws on it. Sail switch is inside here, and it's riding in there. When that thing starts turning, it goes like this. It raises up, and it makes a connection here and tells the system, yes, this is working. Anyway, I took these two little screws out. Sure enough, it was slightly bent from my screwing around pumping air in it. I straightened it out a little bit, put it back in, fixed it. Done. So I don't know what reason you'll have to be taking yours off, but these are some of the tips that some of the things I learned that might help you. One other thing on this gas line, for a while now I've noticed a very, very slight smell. So I thought one day I better check this. Finally got around to checking it. Checked it. Sure enough, it's leaking right here. I was like, how am I going to get that off of there? But actually, it's not too bad. You can see I made a note for myself right here. Okay, shut it off, obviously. Open, take this off. Make sure you back stuff up. This is the gas line that runs to your camper. All right, then now, I originally thought, well, I'll just spin this around, right? Well, this stuff hits. Well, how am I going to get that off? I thought. Well, then I got to looking. This says right up here, it says tighten this way. So it's a reverse. This actually tightens this way. So all you have to do is move this nut this way, and this whole thing comes out, and this is another one of those flare fittings right here inside this. So this whole thing just comes right off. Then I was able to take this away from that and put some more Teflon tape in there, tighten it back up, and I got it fixed. Yeah, just thought I would show you that. Alright, well, hopefully this helps you, and keep those mice out.